welcome Archdeacon and Father Dermot here tonight. It was great being up in the Church of Ireland, St. James's Church of Ireland, called after myself. James Gray, a few years back. Anyway, it's a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to have you here present on such a marvellous occasion. It's a marvellous occasion because it brought back exiles at a time when they wouldn't even think of coming. It was a marvellous time because it was set, I suppose, to bring back memories as well as bringing back people. It's a marvellous time because Laune Rangers brought 2 cups across the bridge tonight. It will be a wonderful time had by all, and I hope that in having that great time they will, as Archdeacon and Father Dermot said tonight, think of those who have less in other countries, and that they would not go excessively into the merriment of drinking and those other things called drugs, which are now very, very much associated with our beautiful town. Now we get on now to the first item here, which is, I suppose, going back in memory, and I was delighted to hear Pa speaking so much. And at the breakfast this morning, I was fresh, and I was just wondering. I saw a table book, a penny table book in Irish here, from, I think it came from James Hammond, Wildflower. It brought back those memories of my time with Benny O'Connell and Mrs. Lamb, and Declan didn't teach me, but I had a wonderful moment, even in defeat after the Munster final, of meeting the only surviving teacher of all the teachers who taught me at primary school, Pat Garvey, who played with Dublin, with Kerry, and played with the Geraldines in Dublin, and he played with Kerry, won the All-Ireland in 1946, one of the best wing forwards that the game had produced, a Dingleman, and certainly it was great to meet him. And he remembered me for one incident which I'm going to recall, because it's one that I really love to recall wherever I go. I was sent into McCarthy's above now Starlight Diner for 6pence worth of sweets. We gathered 6pence between us, and Mrs. McCarthy, Lizzie as she was known, she got a cone made out of newspaper and she filled in so many sweets into it. On my way out, the famous Bat was standing at Jack Denny Khan's door, either waiting for somebody to have a pint with him or was just maybe on the way out. And all of a sudden he calls me and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, have a sweet, sir." So he put his hand in, and first thing he pulled out was a button. And he looked at me and said, "What's that?" Oh, I said, "Sorry, I have to go back in." "What are you going in about?" "Oh, I have to return it." So I went in anyway, and I gave Mrs. McCarthy the button, and she grabbed the bag and filled it to overflowing with sweets. And I came out, and Matt was there, and I said, "You can have a couple of sweets now like that." Well, he says, "That's a great lesson, isn't it?" He says, "I be honest, and you'll gain more." So following day, and from that on, while Garvey taught in Killorglin National School, I was the hero. I was brought up to speak in the 7th commandment the following day, and the awards of being honest. So we get on to the Laune Rangers, and I'm standing here on the very hallway. There was a partition here, running from the hall door in over to that wall there, and it was removed about 3 or 4 years ago to create more space right there around. I had to give in anyway to that son of mine because he said he wanted more space. And it all happened, I think, sometime around the early summer, when 2 gentlemen among many, and that time they used to go to evening devotions on Sundays as well as going to Mass. And they were coming out of St. James's Church after evening devotions, and they met these other guys, and they had run down to a place called the Well Wall. Not the church corner that's written in the history of the book, but the Well Wall. And that was a famous meeting place for everyone that wanted to have a chat. You were looking at that beautiful river, and it flowing so beautifully when it was going out and coming in so beautifully and smoothly. And there many a story was told. So they started talking about the times, and at that particular time, cricket and rugby, of all the things going, were the main sports in Killorglin and its parish. They were the real sports for the, I suppose, the gentry and for the top class, and the poor old chick or something like that had nothing to do. He didn't even have the price of a football. So they decided they would have to do something about it. And they agreed to call a meeting for the following Friday. And the meeting was to take place not in the hallway, but at the hall door. Now, the old hall door, I can remember seeing it in a photograph, but there was one man came along with his son about, I suppose, 10 or 15 years after I was born, and he decided to change it. And that was Michael Hoon and his son Pat. And they changed the old hall door because it was no longer of use. You could never do no anyway, because if a fellow leaned against it, he wouldn't. These trophies, they wouldn't be there at all after the night, if that hall door was. So it was removed anyway, and we have the present hall door as it stands now, and the hallway here, as I say, is gone. But they had to come in here, and they held their meeting standing up. And after long deliberations, they decided that they would form a club. They felt that there was a need for a new unit of the association to be founded in Killorglin. There was one already founded in Killarney under the name of Dr. Crokes. And they decided, at that time they appointed a certain gentleman by the name of Seamus Coffey, who was my grandfather, to be the secretary. And they appointed a man by the name of Jimmy Doyle to be the captain. Now, Jimmy Doyle is a man that very few here would remember, but I remember him and seen him walk up that Annandale or the Church Road Sunday after Sunday and coming down. He was Honor O'Connor's grandfather. He was the father of the grandfather of another famous footballer here in the town. But anyway, Jimmy was with Patsy Begley. They were the first two that decided on having a club, and it all happened, as I say, in the hallway. Now, they were decided that they should get a football, and they'd have to get one of the new type footballs, not the bladder that they used to be kicking around the fair field and well as the doctor's field at that particular time. So they made a collection. Now, I don't know whether the collection was made on that particular night or not, but they collected a total of 7 and 6, 37 and a half new pennies. That was the collection, and that was enough to buy the football. Then my grandfather was ordered to, and I say ordered to, travel to buy a football. So he decided to go by train to Cork, and I don't know how long it took that train to go by Cork, because I went by that train to Tralee, and you'd have to be waiting in Farnford to wait for the Killarney train to come in there. So you joined that train, change of Farnford for Tralee, after passing stations like Milltown and Castlemaine and a few others before you got to Farnford. And then of course you had got the Clay and the Malahagas and before as well. Anyway, that was the start. He went on and he arrived home on a Saturday night, or sometime on Saturday anyway, with a brand new football. And there were quite a few fellas at the railway station to meet him. And of course, the eagerness to feel it, see what it felt like. By the way, it was pumped by the man who sold it to him, and a few more decided they should kick it. So they kicked it from what they called the Bog Road that time, right down through Upper Bridge Street, right down for the corner gap, and up Annandale Road into the doctor's field. And this is why I say that it must have been in the very early months of the summer, because they kicked it, and it said in the book, in that fine summer's night, in the moonlight of a great summer's night. That's the way it was put in the Trailblazers, and I'm certain then that it had to be in the months of the summer. Anyway, all was kicked that could be kicked out of the football, and I suppose they had to get another one maybe after a couple of days. But that was the first football, and then they decided that they would call another meeting to form a proper club, as they called it. And at that meeting there was quite a lot of people, including the man here, J.P. O'Sullivan. And this is where I'd have to start reading through to get the fellas that were there before I missed them out. But anyway, they decided that they would name J.P. as captain. At that time, the captain had a very important job, because he was also, as they call him now, a manager. He was the coach and he was everything else. And Bill O'Brien became the secretary. And they had two teachers who had arrived from Dublin that time to teach in Killorglin. One that was a man by the name of Jack Murphy, and he went to teach here in the old Killorglin Primary School. And the other one was Tom Cronin, and he taught in Laune National School as Carney. Now, Tom, believe it or not, was a very distant relation, or maybe put it the other way around. Peter Cronin here is a very distant relation of that said Tom. Now, they were also appointed as to take over the training of the team as well, which they did, and they decided that they would enter teams for the various championships the following years. And at that time, there were very few teams. Ballymac, the Crokes, and a team in Tralee called Mitchell's, the town of Tralee, and the game was played with a tremendous amount of success in the parish. They had the game of Cade, as they call it. It went from parish to parish, and the first one that brought the ball over the boundary line, they were the winners. It was a type of a rugby game. But this was the new one under the new association rules. They proceeded to qualify and become the first team to represent Kerry in an All-Ireland final in 1892. They were playing a team called Young Irons in Dublin, in Clontuck Park, Dublin Southside. And they were beaten in that game. Now, I have to bring you to a small memory that you could score 150 points in that game and you would still be beaten if the opposition scored just one goal. One goal was better than all the points were scored. And the goal that they were beaten by was a one in the last dying seconds of the game when the goalkeeper became afraid. He was being intimidated by the crowd behind his back. And they were pushing towards him and they were waving all types of bushes from the fences and that saying that if he didn't leave in the ball. And the ball went in, trickled him, and he was one of the best goalkeepers in Kerry at the time, a man by the name of Sheehan from Upper Bristol. He was so afraid of what would happen to him, he decided not to travel down with the team, and he arrived home a few days later when the whole thing died down. JP was vexed, but being the sportsman he was, he decided that he'd offer a sum of money out of his own pocket for the challenge game, and Laune Rangers would travel to any part of the 32 counties other than Clontuck Park to play the Young Islands again. And Young Islands turned it down. So they never got a chance of getting back at them. That was the unfortunate thing. So we weren't the first Kerry team to win the All-Ireland, we were the first Kerry team to reach the All-Ireland. Then we came to the great 4 in a row of championships. They were the first to win the 4 in a row in 87, 88, 89 and 90. And again they won it in 92, 93, 1900 and 1911. One man stood out in all that period as being the first man in Kerry, and I don't think it was equal until maybe the 60s by anybody, to win 5 county senior football titles in Kerry. 5 senior men. And that man was an Aubrey Street man, just a few doors up here he was born, and his son Patrick continued the butcher shop and whatnot across the road grocery, the late Paddy O'Regan. A round of applause please for Paddy O'Regan. Now Paddy won those county championship medals in 89, 90, 92, 93 and 1900. It was a great feat for him. So we move on then to later times, I suppose, times that are getting nearer maybe to some here might remember, and we used to hear the great songs then by sons and grandsons of the people who were in that team. There was one great man in band who died some years back, Patsy Jai, who was wonderful to sing the praises of the Laune Rangers. We heard the ones of that day in Dungarvan and that day in Bantier. They were fantastic, and they're recorded. I think they can be seen over on the window across the door Eagles now. This was really, what would I say, a time also. It was a turbulent time, and there were splits in the team, and we had 2 teams in the Tower of Parish at the particular time. But they came together again like good men, and they put their differences aside and became one. And while they didn't have any great success, little football was being had in the county, they had to go elsewhere, and they joined the East Kerry board at that particular time. And in 1932, they won the East Kerry Championship. And also in 1932, there was a great curate here by the name of Father Frank Manning. And he decided that there should be more football for the youth of the parish, more games, more involvement from all the areas of the parish, and he became the first man to call it a parish league. There were teams in Steel Road, teams in Grand, team in Lower Bridge Street, team in Upper Bridge Street, team in Langford Street, teams down in Grand, Cremon and Caroline. And in 1932, that was a year full of success, as I say, because they were after winning the East Kerry Championship, and then a famous parish league was played. And the captain of the first Laune Rangers team was none other than the late John Joe Falvey. And I have a cup here tonight to prove that, and certainly it was a wonderful feat by him that night. Now, all the celebrations, of course, took place in Falvey's that particular night, and at the early hours of the morning, John Joe would not be satisfied unless all the people that were over with him and all the supporters, which were numerous, they'd march with the cup and he'd be shouldered up on a corner gap, into the square, and out through a place called the Windy Gap. Now, I don't know whether you know where the Windy Gap is or not, but the Windy Gap is at the narrow street where the barracks is right up the street. I was telling the story here at Christmas time to a Laune ranger maybe of the period, and he had been played against John Joe several times, a man by the name of Granny Riley of Langford Street. And he was here with Mikey Kindy, and I was telling him, and he says to Mikey, he says, the Windy Gap, I didn't hear that name in 40 years. Well, I said, you'll hear it now. And he was delighted. It brought back memories to be told about that. Now, at that particular time, there was little or no immigration, because there was no money in the pocket to go anywhere anyway. But there was a laneway down here, and it boasted of some great footballers, in particular 2 families, the O'Reillys and the Cockreys. And in the O'Reilly family, you had Eddie, a marvellous footballer, Danny, who became blind years later and stopped his playing career early, and we also had another great man in Manny. Manny was a household name. And Manny often boasted, you see, one time Glenbeigh couldn't get a team to play them, and they decided they'd go back. And they cycled back, a team from the laneway, he said, with one other outsider. I think he said he was from someplace around Coolban. I don't know what his name is, or whether he was one of the backs or not. And they cycled back, and they played and beat Glenbeigh in Glenbeigh. And Carstaween, the following Sunday, heard about defeat, and they challenged them, and they cycled to Carstaween and repeated the door spade to Carstaween. A team from the laneway, made up of the Rileys, the Cockreys, and the Buckleys, to mention but a few, and Manners. And I think Paddy might be a man who was mentioned, but I think he was younger. Now, at that time, you had some other great footballers. We remember Tom Leary. Tom was a Kerry minor, a great man here in Noble Street, and I remember playing with him in his late days, I suppose, in football. He was well over 40 maybe when I was playing. I was in goals, and I remember getting a good wallop because he left on and couldn't really take me shoulder. But those are the memories of Tom, and of course we had Paddy Mike, who I mentioned, and there was, earlier than that, you had a great footballer also, whose career was cut short very prematurely. He was on the Kerry minor team, and the Rangers travelled to Kiel. They went across from Candifersea by ferry and walked all the way to Rossfield. And a man by the name of Eddie West, who a few months back passed away. Eddie was known as Buddha, broke a leg in that game. And he certainly was a big loss to Laune Rangers. He never played football after that. And he would have been easily the most promising of Killorglin footballers at that particular time. And that was the reason why I had to mention Eddie here, because I only met him, I think, the only time I really met him was maybe at funerals, but unfortunately he passed away from us and left a big divide. Then there came along young fellas like Pat Gallivan across the bridge, who died last year in Florida, and Jack Clifford, the cousin of mine, Josie in Maine. There was Jack Dwyer, the brother of Joe's, the immediate master, and we had Francis Toohey up here up near us, and brother of my own Paddy. Then after that we had Ted Leary, and we had what did I say, Father James Griffin, and John Sheehan across over, and Patty Mangan, and Dillis and Michael, and a few others like that. And we kept the old game going. This was the thing. It was Lower Bridge Street, and Lower Bridge Street had to have football going, because they didn't have it, they wouldn't get nowhere. They wouldn't be listened to by the likes of Manny Riley, and if you wouldn't have a team going. And the Parish Leagues survived until, unfortunately, when they died away, was when Laune Rangers became successful. They didn't seem they wanted many more, and they have what they call now junior leagues there. Anyway,
that was because Laune Rangers were too good for us.
Too good is right.
Silence now, please. Silence now.
Again, at that particular time, they was playing in the latter days in a field called Foley's field, just down the road as you were down to Ballycassan. And that was that brought back many memories to many people in that area, because the great games with the Strive were played down there. But there was a man in charge that time of the Laune Rangers. He was another manager in his own day, a man by the name of Mick Joy. And anyway, old Mike lived over now next to where the old schoolhouse was over in the across from the cemetery. He lived at where Magan's shop is, I would say, right at the back of that. He had his own, the rooms were still there. And Mike was like myself, he knew nothing, only football. and his interest in the Laune Rangers was really fabulous. He had a few county championship medals as well, and he anyway tells a story one day about he came back. They went to Kilmare to play a game, and mind you, this might be something the fellas tomorrow might watch out for. But he told the story. He was at the men's confraternity, you see, that night. Their confraternity organised by Father Frank Mang. And on his way out from the church anyway, somebody thought him, well, how did you get on today, Mike? I'll tell you one thing, he says, how we got on. We had the fastest team that ever left Killorglin. They were intent to defeat, he says, and only for the 4 ditches, they'd be home 2 hours before them. And they were beaten by a cricket score. So I hope that the same thing doesn't happen tomorrow in Tralee. Anyway, we go further on to that field again, and Micheál O'Rourke, God rest him, who was killed so tragically before Christmas last year, was the secretary of the county board, and he was wondering why, when he'd come to Killorglin, that the gates weren't corresponding with the attendance. Now it was 6pence or a shilling to go down to the main gate down at Ballycastle, and you paid going in there, and that was all returned to the county board. But down, lo and behold, there was a great flow of people down what we called the Doctors Road, some people, we call it the Well Road, of old anyway. And down below there was a wicket gate at the other end of the football field, and there Mike Yoshtent himself collecting 3pence a penny a halfpenny for the club. And that's how the club kept going financially.
He's never failed.
And when Mike, of course, was caught by Micheál O'Rourke, that all ended, but it still didn't stop him. I'd say he might have returned half of the 3pence. But anyway, that's how the club survived. And then we got on to the years, brought us right up, we'll say, to the 40s. And the Mid-Kerry board was founded then on an appeal, I suppose, from the people around the area that East Kerry, they wouldn't get the fair play inside here. And they were 5 teams in it in start. You had Glenbeigh and Killorglin, you had Milltown and Keel, and the Beaufort were also taking part. Now the first year of it, something went wrong, Fires won it, and they fell out because they couldn't get medals, they had the price of the medals. Now the cup for the first championship in Mid-Kerry was one known as the Kennedy Cup. It's here in a photograph someplace with Pat Griffin on one of the seldom times that Glenbeigh won it. And he had it with his father and a few more over right here across the bridge with Longview, showing it to the neighbours. So anyway, the Kennedy Cup has history attached to it, because it was a cup that was put up for shooting in a rifle range above here in the bazaar at Puck Fair time. And the finalist for it anyway was a man by the name of Kelleher. His first name I'm not too sure, and a man by the name of Stephen Kennedy. Stephen Kennedy was a native of Listroy, Ballymal's, that direction there, and he was teaching in Quilna. And this man Kelleher said, well, he says, if I win it anyway, the rugby club in Killorglin are going to get the cup. Stephen Kennedy, being the man so involved with football and his family before him, and with him at that particular time, said, well, he says, if I win it, the GAA are going to get it. And I'm going to name the 3 clubs, he says, before I ever win it, Listroy, Keel and Killorglin. And he won it, to the delight of every fellow playing football. And the first Kennedy Cup matches were home and away between those 3 clubs. Then when the Mid-Kerry board was formed, and with the permission of Listroy, they gave the cup to Mid-Kerry for football. And it was the Championship Cup in Mid-Kerry right through up till sometime in the 80s, when people came along and said, we want another cup, and they called it the Michael O'Connor present cup, the Michael O'Connor Memorial Cup. As a result, we're not too sure where that great Kennedy Cup is, because it had memories, and I think it should never have been replaced. It was so part of tradition. And it was replaced, and the man that it commemorated was the present one, Michael O'Connor, played with Laune Rangers, played many great games with him as well, because at that time, Laune Rangers could pick 1 or 2 from the different parishes around. There was open territory, no parish rule. And Michael O'Connor was the man that was involved in the unfortunate incident with Eddie West when Eddie broke his leg over Key. So that's just a small bit of the history. And unbelievable, they could go on and tell you many more, but it's unbelievable that in that space of time, from when they won the first senior title, that they won so many in Mid-Kerry. It just shows that the marvellous work was being done for the youth of the parish. And as a result, They won the senior championship and they became a senior team in 1970. They won the senior county title in 1989 and 1993, bridging that long gap from 1911. And they won 4 minor county championships, and I can say tonight they've won 5. They were the first minor team ever to play in 5 championships in a row, losing the first and the 5th and winning the 3 in between. It takes some achievement to do that. And quite a few of the players won the 3 championships that time. They won the County League Division 1 on 5 occasions, hopefully 6 this year. They won Division 2 on 2 occasions and Division 4 on 1 occasion. Now that was when there were different leagues. They won the Senior Club B Championship on 2 occasions, the County Novice title, and the only time they took part in it, away back in Falvey will remember that. And they won the under 16 in Kerry 8 times. The under 15 was only there for a year or 2, they won it only once. Under 14 8 times, the under 12 6 times, and they won 6 community games championships and reaching the All-Ireland final to be beaten there by a team from Southend, who later became All-Ireland semi-finals.
After.
Yeah, I can get you 8, David. Anyway, as a result of all that youth policy, the parish was really one big united area. And I remember saying at a presentation of medals to the Killorglin young hurlers who won a special minor hurling league in Kerry some years back, that wherever children or young people will play, no matter what game they're playing, there will be no drugs. And I think I can say that up to date. It's only the young fellow who's left hanging around that has no one to care for him. He's the child that's open to the abuse of being offered these drugs. Why he's playing this game, and whether it be any game, it makes no difference what it is once it's a game of good, open air skill with the hurling, with football, handball, rugby, soccer, whatever it is. Once it is a game that's played, you will not have drugs. Now, I hope that in 1952, there were 2 men from Cork here in the town. One was in the agricultural business and the other was in, and I have to mention this because they were, I think, the people, in my opinion, who started the youth policy in Killorglin. Jim Tobin and Kevin Crimmins. Kevin was married to a Killorglin girl, the late Pauline Lee. Belmy is still living in this way. And they call the meeting of a September. It's wonderful how the month of September brings back memories of all these things. They call it meeting in September 1952 of us all young fellas. Now we used to be up in the Fairfield that time. That was the play field because we were only just in the process of buying a sports field where it is now. And hurling and rounders were the games that were played at that particular time. And they decided there was enough lads to form a club and maybe get a minor team going. So we met in the old CYMS 2 years before. The front of it, not the front of it, but the back of it was built, and then the front was knocked down. And there was one little special room which was jut out towards the middle road at the time, and we held our shop meeting there. And Jim Tobin took over the organising of it, and Kevin Crimmins took over the chairmanship. And one great pal of mine, one marvellous pal, I would say this through thick and thin, and he's been away from this town for years, John McCarthy, Tess McCarthy's son, the newspaper shop in Upper Bill Street, and myself were appointed as the first secretaries and treasurers. That was my first involvement at any level with a club. And the success that that hurling club had prompted the people in town who were involved with football to get us involved in the hurling. And I was approached in 1953, when my brother-in-law Brendan Mangan was beginning to get ready to go to Dublin. He was the secretary that brief period, and I was approached to know that I become secretary, and I became secretary in 53. And since then, all these 43 or more years past, I've been involved some way with the GAA. But I would say that the youth policy was started in, football became strong, and it has never looked back. And it was those 2 gentlemen from Cork who were responsible for that. And I'm delighted to say that they are honored in under 16 hurling in the South Kerry, by the South Kerry Hurling Board, as the trophy is called the Kevin Crimmins Jim Tobin Trophy. Now, I have very little else to say except that there was men like David Power and Patrick Chubb and all these men were on the Kerry team that played and made history by playing football over in Gerald Foley's field where Thomas's house built it now, and they were barely beaten. They were county champions going into it, and they were barely beaten in the first round of that by a great Mitchell's team that went on to win. And David took part in, I would say, the best of the great parish leagues with North Town when we were beaten over by Calnifercy in the final over George's Street. That's right. Well, now all I can say is that I've had very great memories, met some great people, and what I've had here was I just had to throw it away because I couldn't be reading it anyway. One thing that I made a statement was that when Laune Rangers would win the county championship, I could die a happy man. And that is true, that I will die a happy man as a result of that. I've got a second chance, and I have a third chance maybe this year to see it out again. So I'd say probably that I'm outliving my time, because if I'd be a happy man every year. But anyway, I would say to all of you that anybody who's influencing the parish, make sure that no matter what game it is, just keep going, because it's vital for our youth and the youth of the tomorrow. If they must have somebody to guide them, and those people are in every parish, and all they need is the encouragement of the people living in those parishes to guide them. And I hope that the day I go across that bridge for the final time, I will be leaving behind me a parish which Laune Rangers and Cremon will be united again.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
The Wildflower of the Laune Committee as a self-appointed representative.
Sober and self-appointed.
I would like to commend both Killorglin and James Coffey, wonderful historians as they are, for their marvelous contribution. I would only hope for posterity that they would put it in writing. Thank you.
Right, okay.
This is a cup that I found in the loft of a former pub in Upper Bridge Street that was run by Bobby Down. I also found a second trophy there, and it was one that was called the Clipper Curtain Trophy. This would have been actually bent, deformed in every way possible, and a very good friend of mine inside Mangan's Jewels in Killarney did the job that we now see in it. There is one name, it was put out for minor football in Kerry for a small bit, but there is one name here, and it is John Joe Falvey, the captain of Northern Street, 1932. I have kept this cup since 1953, and 'tis yours, Declan.
Fill it, Falvey. Fill it, Falvey. Hey, Falvey! Fill it up, boy. Nice thing, yo.
the music, you heard the fucking music.
Nice. Oh, Josie, how are you?
We got two lovely talks, and I must say I was privileged to be there, and whoever was there, I'm sure you enjoyed it. One was the history of Global Street, we should all be really roughly anyway, has everything else in. We do come to waltz, so if you like dancing or singing around, you're more than welcome. Anyway, enjoy yourselves and check it out. My heart will be true. Lovely stuff. Sweet love forever. I'll wait for you. We both made a promise that we never part. So seal it with a kiss forever, my sweet heart. Let bygones be bygones forever. We'll fall in love once again, and let's tell the world how you love me forever and ever. You'll be mine forever and ever. My heart will be true. Sweet heart forever. We will live that we never are. So seal it with a kiss forever, I sing and seal it with a kiss forever, my sweetheart. Too sweet to go out to listen. It was so hard to listen to the dance and out of my heart. To the dance and out of my heart. respect you.